All right, welcome back, Loopers. This is FL04, which is fundamental waveforms. We're going to talk about how to do our fundamental waveform synthesis using the 3X OSC oscillator. We're going to start off by creating a project. We're going to use the speech generation plugin to be able to label what our sounds are. We're going to have the 3X OSC, which we're going to use to create our different sounds. And I'm going to show you how you can use arpeggiation and sliding notes to make those notes sound really interesting. Also, I'll show you how you can do some automation to these sounds. That way you can make them stand out even more than just using the really basic oscillators. All right, that said, let's get into it. I'm going to open up FL Studio first. Make sure this is open here. We're good. All right. I'm going to open up FL Studio here. I'm going to create a new project. So I'm just going to go to File and New from Template up here in the top left. In the template, I'm going to choose my minimal template, and I'm just going to go down to the very bottom and use the empty template here. So we're going to have absolutely nothing in our project. I'm just going to show this to you from working with nothing, starting with the 0 here. All right, so we have our basic project open. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn about the speech generator. The speech generator is it's a plugin that you can use to actually make FL Studio talk in a computer voice, like a text-to-speech usage. So if you click on this plus right here in your channel rack, you can choose the speech plugin, which is here at the very, very top. You'll see something that says speech. So if you click on speech, you're going to see that this opens up. It says speech properties. If you type something in right here, in this little box right here, let me move my magnifier out of the way here. If I type something in here, then I press this little button right here, it will play that as though it were a sound. So I can type in hello class, and I press play here. And you can see that it has a voice that is assigned to it. Now that voice and the character can be chosen down here, so I have the personality of that particular thing. I can choose whatever I want. If I do fast fret here, you can hear it's a different sound. I can simply type in anything here, and I can make it play. There's the child version. It's impersonation of a child. So have fun with playing around with the different personalities that are in here. There's a bunch of interesting personalities that you could use for your text-to-speech here. And you can see here that there's also different styles. So you can make it sing, you can make it monotone. Also in the mode, you can change if you want it to be breathy or whispered. This is usually pretty fun to play with. You can also choose how fast the speech property plays back its sound. So right down here, you can change it to speak faster or slower words per minute. Other thing that you can do, you'll see that there's a piano down here underneath that speech generator. If you right-click on a piano note, you can change which pitch it speaks in. So there you go. You've got your basic speech properties here. That's how you can get something to speak. Now you'll notice that the speech goes right through the master, your master fader right here. So if you want to, you can make it to where you record using this speech generator. If you press accept after you have picked some words that you want it to say, you press accept, then you're going to see that it wants to save this file as a speech generation file. So you can just make it save as one of these files, these .speech files. Press save. After you press save, you should see it over here in its own channel over here in FL, as though it is an instrument channel. So you can see that it has actually turned that file into a waveform. So with this waveform, you can simply click on the waveform here in the channel rack, or you can click on the instrument here of that sound file, and you can just click and drag this waveform into your sequencer or into your arrangement window. So now you can see that it wants to make a version of this. I simply press accept, and it's going to put that sound into my playlist here. So what you want to do with this project is you want to label each one of your sound effects with this text-to-speech. So if it's a teleportation sound you're making, you want the computer to say teleportation. And then it's going to play the sound that you make for the teleportation sound. And then the next thing that's going to come up is the voice once again saying what your next sound is. So you should basically have 8 of these voice things saying what your sound is going to be. And then after that text-to-speech has been played, it's going to play the sound of the thing that you want to make. So let me go ahead and make one of those here. I'm going to try to make a jump sound. So I'm going to go up to speech. I'm going to type in jumping. I'll make it a little bit, there we go. I like that one, jumping. So I'm going to press accept. I'm going to save it as a file for my speech. Then once I have that open, you should see it here. I'm going to take that sound and I'm just going to drag it right here into my arrangement window. When I do that, then it'll show up here. And now I have it to where it's going to play back in my sound file. So now I have my jumping sound, or I have my jumping speech file. Now I want to actually make a sound that will be for that jumping sound. So what I'm going to do is up here in my channel rack, once again, I'm going to click on that plus sign over here. Click on that, and then go to the 3X OSC, which is going to be down here underneath Synth Classic. It's going to be the first Synth Classic that you see. So I want to make a jumping sound for this. And the way I can do that, first thing that I'm going to do, even though this is a 3X OSC, which means that there's 3 different fundamental operators that I can use, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off 2 of them. So the way that this works, you choose your waveform over here on the left-hand side. You can choose your tuning over here with these sliders and this coarse and fine knob here. You can change your panning for your instrument right here where this third knob is. And lastly, over here on the very far right, these are the volume levels for the instrument. Now you'll notice that there's no volume level for the top one. That's because this oscillator, the top one, is going to play no matter what. This one is going to happen no matter what. These ones we can turn on how much we want them to be. And in this case, I'm just going to turn the volume level down on both of these so I have just one sound. In this case, I can choose which sound I want just by picking the icon over here. All right, so I've got the sound picked out. Now what I can do is I can choose to make this play in my piano roll if I want, just by clicking on the instrument over here in the channel rack, going over here and going to piano roll, and I can pick notes that I want to play. Let's say I want a jumping sound effect. What I could do is I could pick a low note. What I'm going to show you is how to slide a note. So to slide a note, you can pick a note in 3X or in the piano roll here, and I'm going to put another note that I want it to slide to. So this is what the note is going to start at, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it go up. And to make it go up, I'm going to use the slide. And the slide is up here. If you look at the top of your piano roll, you're going to see this little triangle right here in this green colored space. If you click on that, that means that you're going to make a slide note. So if I click on this, now I can make a slide note to where I pick where this note is going to slide to. So let's take a look at this really in depth here. If we zoom in on this, we can see that this note that I've chosen as a slide note has this little triangle next to it. That means this is the slide note, or this is where the slide is going to go. So the note is going to start on the note that doesn't have that little triangle, and then it's going to move to the one that has the triangle. Let's hear what it sounds like. There we go. Perfect. So I've got a low note here. It starts at that note, and then right here, it's going to slide up to this note. Now, how long does it take to get to that note? Well, it depends on how long the slide is. If I make it really short, you can see that what happens is it takes the amount of time that this note is written in to reach that time. If I make this really small, you can see that it doesn't take very long for it to get up and in there. However, if I make this longer, it will take longer for it to reach that point. Let me show you here. If I make it really long, if I make this a much longer note, you'll see that it'll take longer for it to get to that point. Let's check out this slide note. So there you go. You've got kind of a siren effect at that point. And depending on what I change my original sound to be, as far as the fundamental waveform, I'll get a lot of different feels. Let's hear what it sounds like with a square wave. That's way more of like a siren sound. And then if I pick this instead, a sawtooth or a triangle, you can also make it to where you don't slide up, you can slide down. So I'm going to put my slide note down here below. Let's see what that sounds like. All right, pretty easy. So that's how you can use the slide note, and the slide note is very useful for making sound effects. All right, so we've talked about the slide note a little bit. We've talked about how to choose different fundamental waveforms over here. Let's talk about some of the other cool things that you can do with 3X OSC. So let me make this my jump sound here. Let me just finish with that. I want it to be quick, though. There we go. I'll make it just that. That'll be you jumping in my game here. So I'm going to take this sound, this pattern, and I'm going to put it into my arrangement here. So I have my regular sound here. What I want to do is I want to make my pattern here. I want to make this into an actual pattern that I'm going to put in here. So right here I have pattern 1. I can just draw with that pattern. Down here, if you go into your arrangement window in the picker over here on the left-hand side, you're going to have your audio sounds that are here, and that's where you can see the speech sounds that I have. But the musical pattern that I just made is going to be over here. If you click on this little piano, that will take you into the patterns. And from here, I can take this and just put that pattern sound that I just made. So here we can hear that it'll say, if I play this as a song form, you'll see that it plays from the arrangement window here. And it has the name of the sound, and then it has the sound that plays back. And this is what you're going to do with 8 different sounds. You're going to make it label with the speech generator what the sound is. The speech will tell you what the sound effect is supposed to be. And then it's going to play the sound right after. All right, let me do another one here. I'm going to do a power-up sound. So for that one, I'm going to just make another 3X OSC here. I'm going to go down here. You can just make a new instrument for each one of these sounds just to keep it simple. I'm going to put another 3X OSC in. I'm going to turn my volume knobs off here. And this time, I'm going to go into the more advanced settings of the 3X OSC. So where are those? If you look up here in the very top left, you're going to see this little thing that looks like a gear. I'm going to click on that gear, and you're going to see these icons up here. These icons allow you to change the 3X OSC in more complicated ways than just what you see here. So if we click on these and we check them out, we'll see that there's a few things that we can do. We can do some fading. We can do some time stretching, just like with the sampler. Right here, we can see our ASDR envelopes, which we're going to talk about later on in the near future, and also our LFO and our filters here. We're going to talk about these in a future lesson, but for now, don't worry about these too much. What I want you to look at is this last one, which has the wrench here. This is what I'd like you to play with, because this is a really fun thing to play with the 3X OSC. So I'm going to show you the arpeggiator, because the arpeggiator is something that's a lot of fun to play with. So the arpeggiator is right here, and the arpeggiator has a few different knobs that you can choose. This one right here makes the arpeggiation go up and down. This up, down, and then up to the top, and then down to the bottom and back up. Or you can make it choose notes randomly. Now, what is an arpeggiator exactly? Well, it plays the notes of a chord one right after the other. So that is, it doesn't play all of the notes of the chord at the same time. Instead, it plays them one right after another. Let me give you an example right here. Where it says chord right here, you can pick any chord in the book. Right here, you can see that I clicked on that, and it gives me all these different examples of chords that I could use. I'm going to pick a minor chord. I'll make it sound kind of sad. So I'm going to click on minor chord right here. And now it knows that I'm going to arpeggiate this sound with a minor chord. So if I play a note, you'll see that what it's doing is it's playing the 3 notes of a minor chord here. I can choose any chord that I want. Anything that you want. I'm not going to grade you off of any kind of creativity. You can pick whatever sound you want. But something to note about this arpeggiator is that this up here on the very top left allows you to choose the way that that pattern is done. So you can see that right here I'm going up. If I click this one, it'll go down. If I click on this one, it'll go down, or up, then down. And if I pick this one, it'll play it up and down, but it'll start at the top and then start at the bottom each time. So let's hear the difference between these two. This one, it simply goes up and down rapidly. And this one, it's going to start and stop at the tops and play it over again. So you'll hear the same note twice, basically. And lastly, if you pick the question mark, then it's just going to randomly pick in that chord. This is kind of quintessential randomized, computerized music right there. All right, so if I pick one of these, like the up and down, actually, I wanted to make it a power up, so I'm going to actually change this chord to be a major chord. Or actually, I'll do a whole tone. That'll sound pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, so let's look at some of the other things that are here on the arpeggiator. We have the time knob here. This determines how fast it's going to play back that sound. So if I move this in this direction, it's going to make it slower. If I move it the other direction, it'll make it faster. And you can get to the point to where it really sounds like it's like a chip tune almost. So this is what the arpeggiator does. It just takes that chord and it plays it back at a given speed, and it plays only one note at a time. All right, let's look at this gate right here. What does the gate do? Well, it introduces silence in between those notes that you have, or rests if you want to think of it that way. So if I press this note, you can see that there's no silence in between these notes, but if I turn this gate down, basically it cuts down the amount of time that each sound plays. This is with the gate. And if I turn the gate back up, you'll see that it basically puts those sounds and slides them together. There we go. All right, so those are the two main knobs that you're going to see in the arpeggiator. This last one, the range, it determines how far this note sequence is going to go. So if I move this range up to 2, now it's going to move 2 octaves up. If I make it go up 3, I'm sure you get the idea. And that's basically what you can do with the arpeggiator. You can make a lot of cool sounds with this idea of just using the arpeggiator and choosing some fundamental frequencies. And if you wanted to slide with this as well, you can click on this little slide right here and it's going to start sliding the notes. All right. So those are most of the things that you're going to need to do this project. Remember, what you want to do is you want to make first your speech say what the sound is going to be. So in your sampler window here, let me get back to that. In your sampler window, you're going to have the voice of the character saying what the sound is, and then you're going to have it play the fundamental 3XOSC sound that you make, the sequence that sounds like it. So in this case, I want one that is power up. So I'm going to start off by making a pattern that just says powering up. Let me go into my speech here. I'm going to make it say power up. And I'll make it a giant male. There we go. Sounds good. After I've saved it, then I can take this waveform here and just drag it into my arrangement window, as you see here. Then press accept, and you should see it show up here. Now I'm going to play the sound that I just made from my other pattern here. So I've got this sound. Let me find that sound here. If I look at my 3XOSC over here, I'm going to create a new pattern to play this sound. So I'm going to go up here to where it shows my patterns. And I'm just going to add a pattern, and I'm going to call it power up. That power up pattern now doesn't have anything yet playing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the 3XOSC play a note here. I'm just going to pick one note. I don't really care what note it is. I'm going to pick this note. There we go. And if I play it, you should hear it play that whole sound. There you go. And it's going to play for as long as that note's duration is. So I'm just going to cut it off a little bit right here. Kind of like where it plays this. There we go. Now I've got that sound effect ready. Now I just have to put that pattern here into my playlist. So here I have, you can see my pattern 1 right here. I'm actually going to rename that pattern. I'm going to call that the jump pattern. And here's my power up pattern. So I'm going to click on that. I'm just going to drag it in here after that sound of the voice playing. And now if I start my, my arrangement here and I play it in song form, we can hear kind of what we're going for. Remember, you need to make 8 of these. So this is just 2 of them. You want to make 8 of them. Here we go. This is basically what you're going for. You're creating sounds using the fundamental oscillators, but you're starting to see that there's a lot of creative things that you can do as far as sound design using the basic tools of sliding, of arpeggiation, and choosing what type of basic waveform you want to use. I hope you have a lot of fun with this project. Make sure that after you have 8 of these samples here, each with speech and the sound that you're trying to make, that you save this as a FLP, as an MP3, as a FLAC file, and I want you to screencast record your project being played back as a screencast, as an MP4 video. All right, everybody, I hope you have fun with this. Enjoy.